Energy is intense. It is so intense the last few days. With it officially being Scorpio season, happy Scorpio season, happy transmutation season, happy triggering season. Scorpio wants us to go into the depths. It wants us to look at our shadow, but that's not always comfortable. So we can be reactive, right? And that is what I'm really noticing right now. I'm going to break down the astrology. I'm going to give you insight of how I use astrology to understand myself better as a self-reflective tool. But as you know from my last video, I was talking about just the shadow of Pisces and the illusions and spiritual psychosis and the delusions of politics and the MAGA people who are literally think this person's their king when he's actively hurting them, right? Why? Why is this all going on? And so I want to do just a quick follow-up to that, and then I'll get into the astrology. I really, really think part of what is happening right now on Earth, because I will say the majority of people in these delusions, in these psychoses, are white. And what I'm conceptualizing with why white people are getting lost right now is because of a few things. But I think the overarching thing is decolonization. We haven't done the internal work. And when you don't do the internal work to decolonize what has happened to your ancestors, to yourself, to the culture, the really the macro things happening, when we open up spiritually, there's a lot of delusions and intrusive distortions in our mind of superiority complex, of colonizers, of white supremacy. I can say it's YouTube. It's not technically white supremacy, right? So I think what's happening is I think these people, I think there's various camps, but I think people are losing themselves in the spiritual community, specifically white women, because they're finding spirituality, which is a beautiful concept. But unfortunately, if you think about spirituality and you think about witchcraft and you think about psychic abilities and you think about the mystery schools from thousands of years ago, it was actually very exclusive to understand spiritual concepts. There was an elite aspect to it, or you were chosen. And why was that? Well, because this stuff is sacred. This stuff is powerful. Oh my God, I'm realizing that's Scorpio. Scorpio is the occult. Scorpio is the alchemist. It is Scorpio season. You honor the oracle. We honor the power of spirituality. But what happens with Scorpio is the shadow is the power dynamic. And I really think that all comes together with decolonization. Because if you haven't decolonized the superior complex of a white individual, because we as white people have been programmed to have a superiority complex, not consciously. And it's not that you consciously value or believe that as a white person, but you are literally, your mind is like a mechanical situation that then when we get into the higher meaning of life and you create your own reality and why that's actually can be harmful, as I've spoken about in other channels, to people with severe trauma, because there is a macro collective consciousness. So like the people in Gaza are not creating their own reality right now. They are a victim to the collective consciousness reality. Now, at the same time, someone like me who has privilege to have food, to have a roof over my head, who have the safety in my life and the regulation in my life, I am creating my reality and I can change that and I can heal that. And that really reminds me of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs from a therapeutic perspective, right? When you have your basic needs met, you can have self-actualization and you can evolve. So what I think is happening, what I've conceptualized over the last 24 hours, 48 hours, is people moving into psychosis have not done the ethical trauma potentially processing that needed to happen, the decolonization of spirituality, decolonization of the mind, of what's happening. And so they want to save things and they want to fix things. And because specifically white women, we understand both sides, right? We understand what it's like to be oppressed, but we also understand what it's like to have privilege. So I think there's this unique thing that can come out of that savior complex that I even have, and I have in my astrology birth chart. I'm a Cancer moon, 10th house. And I think, a lot of therapists go in to the role to help. And then we get caught up in the savior complex. And you really have to realize those boundaries of like, you can't save other people. It's their mission. You can be the mirror, you can support. And I think my toxicity being a Libra rising is I try to hold the mirror up at times where it's not my responsibility. Holy shit, that's also my Saturn in Pisces. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is how astrology can help. My Saturn in Pisces, it is my karmic contract to have emotional boundaries and to not save. Also not to be the victim, in my own relationship. But so what I'm conceptualizing with right now, what I'm sitting with right now, are people are finding, okay, you find spirituality, you find the power in it and the beauty in it. But without proper grounding, right, you have to go down to go up. And without proper maybe guardrails of the human mind, of the human experience, we can open too fast, too quick. And then we lose the sense of self. And because we are ego, like we are humans, and the ego is very much important in the human experience because that's the journey of transcending the ego. That is the story of the Bible. That is the story of everything, every archetypal mission, every spiritual text. It's transcending the ego and realizing we're not individuals. We actually are unity. We actually are each other. We are mirrors, and we should treat each other in that way. There is still the human experience that we still are separate beings because that's part of being down here. Having individuality, Aries, having our own passions and our own drives and our own experience, because the universe wants to experience the universe. So why I think it's important to be able to transcend, to become aware, just become conscious of the ego. So you aren't judging others and you aren't attacking others, and we're coming from a heart-centered space. I don't think we're supposed to abandon the ego in this lifetime, because if we abandon the ego, we're boundless. We are just Pisces. We are just one. And then what happens to the physical? Because the physical body is still real. Ooh. And the astrology currently in the sky with Neptune moving back into Pisces and retrograding, the rose-colored glasses, the delusions, the illusions, the veil, whatever you want to call it, while simultaneously Scorpio season's happening, where naturally the energy is thin, people are either getting lost or we're seeing things more clear than we ever have before. And that's where I think I am right now. I think the spiritual crises, the things that I'm actually having to really reflect on right now is helping me see what spirituality really, the heart of it is. And it is being human, and it is honoring earth, and it is being in the present moment, and it's just enjoying. And whatever is going to come is going to come. We can't control the fate and the destiny of the world. So why are we trying to understand it? Why are we seeking it? Now, I don't think that's wrong, because that is Sagittarius, and I have my Jupiter in Sagittarius. And so to me, all things are true. To me, I do love the ability to think about stuff and to think about the philosophy of life. But what happens is my Jupiter is at 12 degrees of Sagittarius, which is a Pisces degree. And it is exactly squaring my Saturn, which is at 12 degrees of Pisces, that there's a lot of Pisces influence. And Pisces can be delusional because Pisces can just believe all things and get swept up in fantasy and dreams. And we need that in our life, but we also need a groundedness, which is where my Saturn is, which is Saturn returning. Ooh, that's a lesson. It's a lesson that I can't believe in everything. I can't believe all things are true while simultaneously understanding all things are true. But in the human experience, everything is an illusion. So I have to have discernment. I'm going in circles right now, but to me, this is all making sense. This is kind of just like an online journal of kind of what I'm processing. And my husband is my mirror, right? I think sometimes I'm a Libra rising, right? We are the mirrors to everyone, and we can reflect back things with defenses are down. But my husband is my mirror. He's my grounding force, where there's times I've almost tipped the edge and he's like, hey, let me put the mirror up to you. It's not always easy. His Saturn is on my Jupiter. So there is this restrictive feeling of he restricts my belief systems, but I think that's intentional. Then my Saturn is directly on his Jupiter. So freaking weird, right? So I'm trying to help him see things even just a little bit more spiritual, because he's very analytical. He's very logical. He's a Virgo rising. But it triggers me sometimes when he does hold that mirror up. Why? I don't know. But the energy right now, today, we have the sun, moon, Mars, Mercury, all in Scorpio. And there is this deep, deep drive for intimacy, vulnerability. That's what I've done today. I've opened up with a childhood best friend. I feel like I went through kind of a friendship breakup. Another person in my life, I set a very strong emotional boundary that I don't want to engage in things anymore. Um, there's a power dynamic with my old mentor that has been revealed that I'm not going to take on, that I normally would have taken on and would have really wanted to be invested in it. But I'm not this time because it's not my business. And what I've come to realize with power dynamics recently, which is funny because that, again, spiritual tools can create these power dynamics. My Pluto is at 0 degrees of Sagittarius. There has been a past life wound that has come through in shamanic readings and my own astrology chart that in a past life, people have abused spiritual texts with me. And what I'm realizing with my body responding and getting on the edge of spiritual, not wanting to experience spiritual psychosis, and in my history of the last 5 years, teetering to the edge and then coming back and the edge and coming back, is I think in a past life I've experienced that. And that's why I have such a visceral reaction, because with Pluto being at 0 degrees of Sagittarius, my old mentor used it against me. So Pluto in the sky is in Aquarius. It's sextiling my natal Pluto. And what happened was the day it went retrograde, I had a panic attack because that was the same day that I announced my mentorship, astrology. And what was coming through was like, am I the mentor? Oh my gosh, I don't want to abuse my power. What about astrology? Da, 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 da. And I had to meditate on it. And I went to a healer around this. And it's a past life wound that I'm releasing of showing myself and showing people that you can be a spiritual mentor with ethics and with groundedness. And that is how I teach astrology. The basis of my astrology is it's trauma informed. And that is why I've really felt like I needed to become a therapist first and foremost, to understand how the brain works, to understand how trauma works, so that I can ensure that I'm not inflicting wounds on people. And I think that's the basis of mystery schools and witchcraft and things. There's ethics here, right? There is layers of making sure we don't get inflated egos, yes, but also understanding the other human and how humanness works. And I think if there's a lack of understanding of that, harm can be done. And I think that's what's happening in the spiritual community is like, we're opening these gifts because the information is so open with social media, which is a blessing. But I think this is the shadow of it, Neptune and Pisces, is that the information is so accessible. But because it's so accessible, there's no guardrails. And because there's no guardrails with really information that's power, bad things can happen to the individuals, to clients, to people. And so what I've built the lunar child on is truly understanding that and understanding ethics and trauma informed and giving people their power back. Like, listen to yourself, listen to your intuition. And there's this moment in time right now in my life where Saturn is back in Pisces. My Saturn natally is in Pisces. And it's saying, did you learn the lesson? Are you setting those boundaries? Are you emotionally understanding and listening to your intuition, listening to your gut? And I feel like today I took that accountability and I have, and I'm starting to really understand that and see things a lot clearer. The rose colored glasses, right? That Neptune being back in Pisces, like it really is this like clarity I'm seeing, the seeing through a lot of things that maybe I once were fantasizing or dreaming about. And again, all things are true. Your perception is your reality. Our mind is a beautiful thing that we can create other realms. We can create dreams. We can create all the things. But it comes back to none of us will understand what's really happening until life after death. Or maybe I'll have a spiritual experience one day and truly understand. I don't know. Yeah. It's just a really interesting concept. And I really do think it comes back to making sure we do our own, not just individual trauma healing, but societal healing, decolonization, all of that kind of stuff. And I posted a video on that yesterday that I kind of went deep into, but so fascinating. So fascinating. Let me know your guys' thoughts.